If you told me last year I'd be standing barefoot in my yard at 3 in the morning, watching my house burn like a bonfire, I would have laughed in your face. My life was predictable. Coffee at 6, out the door by 7:30, and in my law office before most people had finished breakfast. 22 years as a trial attorney. The night it happened was cold and still. I'd gone to bed early, a little worn out from a long week. The smell hit me first. Sharp, chemical, wrong. I thought maybe one of the neighbors was burning trash. Then I noticed the light. Flickering, orange, too bright for a street lamp. When I pulled the curtain back, my stomach dropped. Flames were already chewing their way up the siding on the east side of my house. I was outside before realizing I'd grabbed nothing but my phone. The fire wasn't creeping. It was running. Heat hit my face like I'd opened an oven door. Neighbors were spilling onto their lawns, some yelling, others just staring. And as I stood there, shivering in the October air, one thought hit me like a punch. This wasn't an accident. Not after the past few months with the HOA. By sunrise, all that was left was a blackened skeleton of wood and brick. The fire crews packed up, and an investigator walked over, his boots wet from the hoses. "We found accelerants," he said. "Someone lit this on purpose." The thing about being a lawyer is you tend to collect enemies. I knew exactly where to start looking. The Oak Ridge HOA had been breathing down my neck for 6 months about unauthorized renovations. First, it was the fence. Then it was the shutters. Every little thing became a letter in the mailbox or a notice taped to my door. Gerald Cross, the president, took particular pleasure in delivering them himself. I still had the last one. Big red letters at the top. Final notice of compliance. Underneath, vague legal-sounding threats about serious consequences. I moved into a hotel that morning, but didn't sit around waiting for answers. I started knocking on doors, asking if anyone had cameras pointing toward my property. Most said no. One neighbor, a retired teacher, said yes. We sat in her kitchen watching grainy black and white footage. 2:14 in the morning. A figure in a hoodie walks right past her driveway with a gas can in hand. Then, for a second, the hood slips back under the streetlight. Strong jaw, graying beard. I'd seen that face across conference tables. Gerald. 3 days later, I got an email from someone I didn't expect, an HOA board member. They weren't exactly a fan of mine, but apparently, they weren't a fan of Gerald. Attached was a thread of internal emails. One line stood out. "We have to make an example. If we don't act, others will follow." The board member wouldn't say more, but I didn't need them to. I tried enough arson cases to know what this meant. Combine that with the video and the fire marshal's report, and we had something solid. The police didn't drag their feet. Gerald was arrested within the week. They said arson and property destruction, but all I heard was finally. When they walked him to the cruiser in handcuffs, he looked right at me and grinned. "You think you've won? This isn't over." 1 week later, we were in court. I wasn't behind the defense table this time. I was the one wronged. It felt strange sitting on the other side. Gerald sat in a suit that probably hadn't been worn since the last HOA banquet, smirking like this was all a misunderstanding. The prosecutor started strong. Photos of the damage, the accelerant analysis, the security footage, and then the emails. You could feel the temperature in the room change when that one line was read out loud. Jurors started leaning forward. Gerald's lawyer tried to spin it, said the fire was electrical. But the footage and the emails were like nails in a coffin. When I took the stand, I didn't get dramatic. I told it exactly how it happened. The fence, the shutters, the endless notices, the threats, the night of the fire. I walked them through. The video frame by frame. I read the final notice to them word for word. I let the jury see precisely how calculated this all was. And when the prosecutor asked how I felt seeing Gerald in the footage, I didn't hesitate. I wasn't surprised, just disappointed I was right. It didn't take long. Guilty, all counts. 18 years in prison and restitution for my home. The rest of the HOA board resigned within a month. Oak Ridge rewrote its bylaws, stripping away half the nonsense rules they'd used to harass people. I rebuilt on the same lot, but this time, I added steel fire shutters and cameras that covered every inch. Neighbors who barely looked up before now stopped to chat. One even said, "You know, you scared them more than the fire scared you." A few weeks later, I was on my porch drinking coffee when a moving truck pulled up outside the old HOA office. They loaded furniture and boxes, and by the end of the day, a for lease sign went up. I sat there, watching the last piece of the old guard get hauled away. Power attracts people who think rules don't apply to them. Gerald was one of them. But I've spent my life making sure those people remember that the law doesn't care who you are. Somewhere, in a prison cell, Gerald was probably still convinced he was the victim. But I knew the truth, and so did the jury.